You're listening to iFanboy Pick of the Week, episode 959. My name is Conor Kilpatrick, and this is my co-host, Josh Flanagan.
Hi there. I hope you're liking and smashing and such.
I am. Welcome
Hi.
to iFanboy 2025. It's our 20th year of doing the show, our 25th year of doing iFanboy, and that means that every week for 25 years, one of us has picked the book they like the best in their stack of comics. We call that book the Pick of the Week. We'll talk about that book, other books of the week, the Patron Power, listener mail will be fun. Here's your spoiler warning. There'll be some. Exercise some caution. And, I just wanted to, before we get into the show, a lot of people have reached out to me through Instagram, through our Discord, through email, asking how I was doing with my friends and family. We're all in Los Angeles. Obviously, we are dealing with horrific, hopefully once in a lifetime fire situation. Thousands of people have lost their homes. I know personally a couple. I know at least 20 through other people, like friends of friends, coworkers, clients. It's about as bad as it can get, and it's weird. I'm in a weird headspace, but one of the things that's great about this show, and Josh and I always say, is it makes us feel better doing it. And so I'm going to take 1 hour out of my weird headspace to enjoy myself and have fun with my friend Josh. But
it's a lot of pressure.
Thanks for thinking about me, everyone. And, if you can help, if there's, clothing drives or anything for people who've lost everything, please consider it, because it's really, really bad. That being said, the serious stuff out of the way, let's get to the fun, goofy stuff so I can laugh for a bit. That's this week. Josh, you had the pick, and boy, good week. We didn't get the 2-week curse on us. We got a good week.
I gotta say, there was a lot of tragedy going on, and you were in actual danger. But I was like, it's a bad week to have to miss, though. I did think that. My whole life is around the context of this, and given the conversation from last week where we're like, hey, these comics all sucked. Remember last year when all the January comics suck? I thought, oh, this is a good week. So the pick of the week would be Absolute Batman #4. And while I would say we've really enjoyed a lot of these Absolute books, I still refuse to say that I'm all in. There's only 3 of them, but but that's just because I'm not.
They've all been pick of the week at least once now.
That's crazy. It's predictable like clockwork. If a thing launches and we're like, that is a dumb name, we're gonna love it. I mean, I can't imagine that when 52 came out, we weren't, I don't remember, but I bet we were like very skeptical, like this can't be any good. And it was just like, nope, this is the best thing that's ever been done, and it defies imagination.
Right.
I don't even want to think about how old when did that happen?
Oh, that was
long time.
2007 or something like that.
Okay.
Something like that.
This kind of happens a lot. Okay, so I'm reading Absolute Batman, and I have an expectation at this point. Yeah. I've really enjoyed the other issues, and I'm a little into it. I'm like, this art's not the same. What's going on here? And I look, and it's Gabriel Hernandez Walta, and I think, well, if you got to substitute somebody in, that's
so good.
That's a damn good artist to sub somebody in. And also, it's still his art. It's his own art, but it fits in the world. Yeah. It became immediately apparent to me is that there's an early scene of Batman does a lot of prototyping, and we see through it. So we see an early version of his Batman character who has like plastic fangs, and the way that the costume is drawn in this sort of scribbly, I don't know, it looks like a kid's drawing of the Batman suit with just basically all these squiggly lines that make up the gray.
Right.
And I thought that was kind of interesting, but he realizes like he had silicon fangs that were loaded with paralytic, like this,
and he would bite people. He was taking the bat thing way too seriously. He had claws on his hands, like a little Wolverine claws on his knuckles, and then the fangs. And I was like, what is happening? And then he bites a guy, and I was like, oh wow, okay. I mean, this is essentially a Batman origins issue,
sure,
for the Absolute Batman. Yeah.
And what I thought was nice is that I think Scott Snyder in general has refined his style, and I think that he's gotten less precious with ideas and let things breathe a little more. and which by like super successful how he's been doing everything. But I just find that as a writer matures, this will happen. Like it's just a little more elegant. It's a little smooth, and I've really noticed it and enjoyed it in a lot of stuff that he's done lately. Such to the extent, like for a while, I could be like, I know I'm reading a Scott Snyder book. It just had a thing, had tons of narration, and there's narration in this, but I just thought it was really nicely done. So I kind of forgot, and I was like, oh, this is like the best version of this guy. The reason that we're talking about his pick of the week is a bunch of things I liked, but the scenes with his father, I thought were really interesting as a sort of different take on the father-son dynamic by making him a little older when his father dies. I think maybe not, or at least we spend more time with him. You sort of get it, but I also like the idea that his dad. What does he do?
He's a teacher.
He's a teacher, right? But there was something about him wanting to have been a doctor and how he didn't get to, and I was like, that's a nice little left turn that sort of nods to it. But like, what would
in another world, I might have been a heart surgeon.
Yeah. Which is a little on the nose, but it's comics, and I totally, and I think it works really well. And I also like the idea was like, I wanted to be a doctor. I was looking through who he was, and I'm kind of doing what I wanted to anyway, which was to help people. And I was like, okay, and so there's a bunch of things in that conversation that I think inform why Bruce Wayne grows up to be who Bruce Wayne is. Complete with these sort of the need to help, that instinct, and then also the rage, like that this wonderful thing, this part of his life was snuffed out. Super supportive and helpful and intelligent. I really like those scenes.
Yeah, so the whole thing isn't a voiceover from the event, but he is one of the framing devices is he's speaking at Joe Chill's sentencing hearing. So Joe Chill in this book went to the Gotham Zoo where Bruce and his dad's class were on a field trip and shot up the place, and one of the people he killed was Thomas. And so at his sentencing hearing, Bruce is giving like the speech. They let the victim's family talk, and so that's part of the voiceover. It's not all of the voiceover.
And as a sort of device and a structure to put everything around, I was like, oh, that's almost like a Tom King kind of move.
Yeah.
And I just thought it was elegant. I thought it was really nicely done, and you culminate and you've got this sort of romantic story of the fatherhood part, and then again there's that rage in there, where he gives no fucks, to use a barbaric term.
And I thought I love Gabriel Hernandez Walta. He's one of my favorite artists working, and it just gave it such a different feel. And we talked about, I think it was last week, about how the Nick Dragotta art really and Nick Dragotta is still co-plotting this with Scott Snyder, really gives it this propulsive force. But so this issue, the art slows it down as we flash back. And I can't remember. I meant to look it up, but I've been busy. In Batman's actual beginnings, we didn't get his origin until several issues into the comic. I don't know if it was the 4th issue, and I don't know if they were trying to mirror that. I couldn't remember. But you start with the character, you're already in it, you're in media res, and then you stop and you learn how he got here. And I liked that for this. And it's really funny how in the big hero shot that Walta does, where he's finally got the full outfit, he makes the logo that sort of recalls his bridge he's building as a kid, and he's got the whole outfit. Even Walta can't draw him as big as Dragotta does. Like,
yeah,
he's basically regular Bruce sized in that shot where he's jumping and the lights in the background.
He just couldn't find a way to make it work with the anatomy.
Right. I mean, Dragotta makes it work, but I think maybe that's only Dragotta.
And that's fine.
Yeah, it just looks like a regular dude, but it just, it's good, man. I liked it. We don't want to keep singing the same song about these absolutes, but they're really fun Elseworlds books, essentially. And
well, I mean, so many times, if you've ever read any bit of comic book PR or marketing copy, it's just like people channeling Stan Lee. They're bringing him, they're doing a thing that's never, the biggest talents are coming. And in this instance, so far, I don't know, 3-4 issues into all of these series, for whatever reason, like the talent really has brought something to it, which is interesting because Scott Snyder spent so much time with Batman Prime that to sort of take a different approach to it, and it does feel it doesn't feel like a carbon copy. There's thought that went into these and differences that make us have to sort of work to see the character we know in it. Not a ton, but enough that it's interesting. And I think a lot of times that's not the case. And then again, there's really interesting and intelligent art choices. And I know and names don't necessarily move the needle. And I also know that the names of the artists on these books aren't big names per se, but they're like artists, all of them. And it's so like they went with talent, which blows my mind.
I don't want to derail us, but the whole name thing is so interesting because there is an alchemy where the name plus the character plus the premise does work. Where like that's how most of Tom King's stuff works in terms of people being excited for it. And I think it was Snyder plus Batman again, plus reinventing Batman, I think really was that secret sauce. I do think so. I think now if you put Snyder on Aquaman, I don't know if it'll sell, but I just think there's this weird alchemy now. It doesn't always translate, but there's a weird thing where it can work, but there's no predicting it.
Yeah. And I think I mean, like it was pretty clear when I was reading this. I was like, oh, I think this is a pick of the week. And I read a lot of books I liked. I think there was only one other book that was close. So it's not one of those ones like, I don't know, it's the best I have. Like I just like it's surprisingly well done. It's refreshingly well done.
I do want to mention one more scene that I thought was really terrific was that I know we have to move on. He's on, there's like a party, there's a Gotham like gala happening, like a charity gala, and he's on the roof. And he's planted microphones all around, and he's gathering intel on the corruption.
Mm-hmm.
So he knows everyone's secrets. Like this billionaire is doing that, and this commissioner of the EPA is back dealing with this pollutant. Like he's got it all now, and I really like that. Detective-y ish. He's not solving a crime, but he's gathering intelligence,
and also practical. Like it wasn't like super science. It was like good old fashioned, almost like spy work. And I'm going to make one other mention of things before we move on is that there's a bit where the truck starts driving away and you see a Batmobile come up. And I thought that Batmobile looks like an RC car. And then it was an RC car. Then he's driving an actual
he's got the controller.
That's a Traxxas right there. That's a low budget. He'd have a better one than that.
Well, this is not rich Batman.
Well, yeah, still.
He ain't rich. He's the son of a teacher.
Yeah. That's a rustler, I believe. So, my son has one.
That was very good, and I was not surprised when you made your pick of the week. So
yeah, I was not when I read it, but just I when I started it, I thought I'll probably enjoy this. It'll be fine, and then just a skill.
I think one of the great things about DC versus Vampires World War V, and this is number 6, is that I'm not saying it is on the same level as Deceased, because I think that had a much deeper world, but it's starting to feel like it. Like there's a lot going on, and you can really explore so many different avenues with this world.
Yeah, and it doesn't feel like we have to end it anytime. Like this could go on a while. This was my runner-up. I'll say this is the one I had to decide between. And again, largely because I like the way that things are mixing in this book. I like there's a weird thing that's going on, and I have questions where a lot of times I think they would be criticisms, but here I have questions. So I like the stuff with Barda and Scott and like I kind of keep forgetting like, wait, who's a vampire here and who's not? And like we're like
Otto Schmidt's art is such that everyone's kind of got vampire-y teeth.
Yeah,
so
but
it's hard to tell sometimes.
I don't even think that's a weakness though.
No, I don't. It's not
and
a criticism.
It kind of keeps it exciting. Which is a thin line to tread. You that doesn't happen a lot, where that sort of vagueness benefits the book. But in this case, here is my question, and I'm very close to inviting Matthew Rosenberg on here so I can just ask these questions.
Sure.
Why do some of the people, when they are vampires, talk all arch and scary and not like themselves, like Barbara Gordon? And then
Right.
why do others just talk like they always did?
Some of them buy into the bit.
I guess so. Yeah, they're just.
I do want to mention this is Matt Rosenberg and Otto Schmidt doing this book.
Yeah.
I had my question was why didn't Supergirl just toast all the vampires with her heat vision? Because couldn't she just cut them all in half?
I mean, she has the heat vision.
Instead, she draws an Alamo-esque line in front of them and says, "Don't step over this line." Which is
Well, I think the idea there. I mean, she might do that in the next scene after the last page, because the whole deal is that there is a truce, and none of them are trying to be the ones to break it.
I guess you're right.
So that might be the thing there.
Let me tell you, when Darkseid showed up and he was 3 times the size of everybody else, I was like, "Bring it!"
I loved that. Was fantastic, and he's just like,
he's gigantic.
You don't have the baby? All right, boom, literally.
He just squished Aquaman into pulp,
which is great. Aquaman was really leaning into it. I was like, you sound like Namor. I don't know what's going on here. Yeah,
it's just it's a little chaotic. I think that would, and that's a good thing, and also a bad thing. But I'm really excited when it comes out. I think these kind of worlds, and this is relatively new, I think, where you really let Tom Taylor build out Deceased. You really let Matthew Rosenberg build out DC vs. Empire. You really let Tom Taylor build out this Dark Knights of Steel. Where we've got these really great alternate DC universes in which they can play. And if you put Matthew Rosenberg on a regular DC book, I'd be excited for it.
Mm-hmm.
But here he gets to actually tell stories with stakes, because we know regular books can't have stakes,
and just the freedom. He doesn't have to stick, so he can, like, this is the same thing with Tom Taylor. Is like, I can tell my story however I want to, because there's no guardrails other than the larger ones that have to do with doing these books. But what's interesting about DC versus Vampires is that, just like Deceased is very consistent, it's Matthew Rosenberg doing the whole thing. Each arc has its own artist for a while, fantastic artist, and also it's not hard to follow. I would say that even like All Night, or what's the Knights of Steel, All Winter,
Knights of Steel,
that takes me a little time to orient each time. This book doesn't. Now, because they're not really different versions, they're the same characters that they are. But I just find that a lot of books out there, I kind of would lose track about where they are, and I come back to it. And this is just for a book that has so much going on and so many characters in it. It's pretty readable.
Totally, I agree. Yeah. It's one of my favorites when it comes out. I'm very excited.
Yeah,
beautiful. All right, we got more colors. We got more comics to talk about. Let's take a quick break. We'll be right back with more. Okay, now let's talk about what is apparently Kyle Starks' obsession with serial killers, because he had 2 books out this week about serial killers, and he's before this been a comedy writer. This is Those Not Afraid, #1 from Dark Horse Comics. It's a new book, and I thought this was great, first of all, but I was a little concerned about Kyle after finishing both of them this week.
It's all of these guys, man. They all love horror, like, for the most part. Like, I feel like, especially the funny guys, like, no, I just want to do horror. I read it. I read all Kyle Starks books as a rule. I think it was very good. I don't know that I want to read it.
Well, this is not the comedic one. The comedic one is Welcome to whatever the hell it's called.
Yeah.
And Welcome to the
Where Monsters Lie.
That's close.
And they're in the second series, Cul-de-sac, right now. Right. Which I dropped.
Oh, really?
I mean, it's like halfway, kind of like I missed an issue, and then I think I read the first one of the new series, and I just thought I kind of don't care.
Well, that one's more comedic than this one. This is more straight up about 2 serial killers who, but they're both in some state. I forget if they even named the state or not, but
it's always Washington, isn't it?
Because of a podcast, a true crime podcast, they realize that they are very close to setting the record in the state for murders, and so they end up running into each other and deciding they're going to have a contest to see who can get there first. My first note is the cover artist did not check with the interior artist, because the guy in the mask in the book is black, on the cover is white. I thought this was good. I mean, I like serial killer stories. I don't look at it so much as horror as I do like thriller.
Hold on,
crime.
Just real quick.
Yeah.
I went to the cover and I went, God, that's crazy. That looks just like Glenn Fabry.
Is
Oh,
it Glenn Fabry?
it is Glenn Fabry. I can't remember the last time I saw a Glenn Fabry cover.
Oh, it is Glenn Fabry. Yeah,
that's nuts. Sorry.
No, I didn't even
Preacher.
look.
He did every cover of Preacher. He did most of the covers of Hellblazer when Garth Ennis was writing that. It's just, this guy's a legend.
So anyway. I mean, I thought it was an interesting twist on things, obviously none of the stuff that ever happened, but you have like a Ted Bundy-esque serial killer who tries to lure women into helping him with a cat, like looking like he's injured, which is what Ted Bundy did, and kills them, only kills brunettes. And then you got this other guy wearing a mask who is much more of like your Kyle Stark's character, like would be at home in the other book, which is an over the top comedic serial killer story. And he's I don't remember what he does exactly. It was a very long week for me, but I just thought it was interesting. Two serial killers meet at a bar and decide they're going to have a contest, and I've never heard that story before. So, and I thought the art was really good from Patrick Piazzalunga.
I thought that the moment, like they had just met somewhere and they came up with this whole way to contact each other, and then like 3-4 pages later, oh no. And that's how it ends. I was like, oh, that's really clever and well done.
Well, they run into each other in real life.
That's what I mean.
Yeah. Outside of their serial killer identities. Yeah.
Yeah. And of course the podcaster
is the daughter of one of the serial killers
involved with it.
I mean, there's a lot here, but I really did like the execution. I think Kyle Starks is a terrific writer.
I absolutely think the execution was excellent. I think the art was really good.
It just may not be your kind of thing.
I don't love serial killer fiction stories. I don't know, like it. I don't know. It doesn't.
You're doing TV.
Do I?
You like Manhunter?
Yeah, well, yeah, but that's really more about the cops.
Was it?
Yeah, it's about King George and that other guy. Jonathan Groff plays King George in Hamilton.
It's not a long time ago.
And I mean,
I liked it.
I did not like it. It's just not my favorite.
That's fine. That's also fine. I assume also not your thing was Aquaman #1, new issue from the All In reboot. Jeremy Adams, formerly the writer of Green Lantern and Flash, is now doing Aquaman.
At the end of every new DC book, I should be like, wait, before we move on, Connor, you all in?
Well, you said you were all in on Absolute Batman. I thought you were making a joke.
No, well, I was making a joke at that point. I was making the joke about I wouldn't be using that phrase, but now I've decided that I want to make you say that you are all in.
All right, fair enough. John Timms on art, who I love, who's a really terrific DC style artist who's been bouncing around different titles. And
who's the if you say DC style artist, like who is the person you're basing that on?
I would put him in a camp similar to Dan Mora. Now, not at his level, but I would put him in a similar
a Jim Lee descent tree.
I mean, I guess maybe you could see that in there. I'm trying to see if I'm scrolling through Aquaman now. I don't really see a ton of Jim Lee, but I guess you could say that.
All right. I feel like Dan Mora is descended from a Dan Lee or Jim Lee type of thing. I don't know who Dan Lee is.
Cartoonier than that.
Yeah.
Anyway, here's the headline. We've got the power switching going on. And so might as well fuck with Aquaman. And they don't fuck with him too much. He has inherited his wife Mira's powers of water control, water telekinesis. So in addition to his traditional power set, as you see on the cover, he's now he's got a water sword. He's using water as a weapon. It's not that bad. It's not that huge of a difference, but it's basically
he fights with a big monster dragon thing. What's made of water,
and he's riding a shark on the cover that's for some reason biting his logo. It's not a good cover. And also there was a pose in, I think it was an Uncanny X-Men this week, there was someone holding a sword and looked exactly like Aquaman's pose. Anyway, I thought this was fine. Like, this is a fun Aquaman book. It's not going to blow your socks off. It's not going to change the world. But, Aquaman's one of my favorite characters for reasons unknown to me. But I've stopped looking for world-changing Aquaman comics ever since Peter David's run in college. And now I'm just looking for entertaining Aquaman stories. And this is fun. He's, saving the day, using his new powers, figuring it out. Helps a crashing plane land with his water abilities, which was harder than he thought. And I thought that was interesting. And he's a really bored king. He doesn't like his kingly duties and yada yada yada. It's not going to change your life, but it was fun. Plus, there was a whole Justice League team up. I really like this whole Justice League, status quo. Goes up in the Watchtower. There's tons of characters walking around. He gets Batman and Wonder Woman to help him, and then somehow Atlantis gets destroyed, and it's something to do with Darkseid because the giant Darkseid logo is sitting in the ruins of it, even though Darkseid's supposed to be dead. So there's an interesting mystery. The art's really fun. I think Jeremy Adams writes a nice, breezy B-level DC character. Like, this is no knock on them, but the A level is Batman, Superman, Wonder Woman. This B level is Flash, Green Lantern, Aquaman, Hawkman, those kind of characters. And
Hawkman is not B.
He's B in my heart.
He's low B. He's B minus.
I grew up with Silver Age, Bronze Age books. He was a B.
I get it, and they're not helping him. That's not it's not his fault.
Something I have noticed in a lot in the last few months is that Zatanna pops up everywhere. She's in this book. She's been in several DC books. Just shows up. I'm not complaining. I love Zatanna. Great C-level character. But it's interesting to me that she keeps popping up. Makes me wonder if they're going to do something with her in the movies.
I really like the idea of every time a character comes up, we rate them with a letter. Like, where are they? It's going to lead to so many arguments.
No problems whatsoever.
No,
but it was fun. It was fun. I liked it. It was a solid. I honestly didn't even know it was coming. This is how far out of the loop I am lately. But I was like, oh, Aquaman. And I was like, I like the creative team. And it was a fun little thing. This would not be for you. But if you're a DC guy and you enjoyed Jeremy Adams' other DC books, you'll probably also enjoy Aquaman. It's just a fun adventure. That's all.
I looked at it and I thought, I don't think Jeremy Adams is for me.
No,
and that is not a knock on Jeremy Adams. Just it's I've read a bunch of them and I was like, not my deal. I'm looking at it though, and I can tell exactly from the art and everything that's going on, what it is and what it's supposed to be, and I have no problem with it. It's just not my bag.
I understand.
There's a really cool bit actually on like page 4 or so, where the jet's going down, and in the flumes of the jet, it says 1 year before. Here. Right there.
I see.
They put
sort
the
of
in there.
Eisner-esque lettering.
Yeah, that's really cool. You just like, comics are so good for that, and people don't think to do it all that often. So I respect that.
Let's take a quick break. iFanboy is a listener-supported show. That means you, the listener, and sometimes viewer, sometimes both, you help support keep iFanboy going and keep the lights on. And one of the best ways you can do that is at patreon.com/iFanboy. You directly support the show, become part of a great community on Discord and Facebook. You can vote on the Patron Pick. You get a Patron Power live on the show at the proper level. There's a monthly Patron Hangout you get to come and join on and have fun with. At the $10 or higher level, you get an ad-free version of this show. Quite frankly, you get an ad-free version of all the shows. We should probably change that copy. Plus, you get this Pick of the Week show 1 day early on Saturday. Sometime on Saturday. We don't promise you a time, but we promise you a Saturday. Plus, you get access to the iFanboy After Show on Sundays, where we talk about all the other books we didn't talk about in this show. It's a great time. There's a discount if you sign up for 1 year all at once, and you can send a received gift memberships. Go to patreon.com/iFanboy/gift for more info. Now, iFanboy.com/threadless. iFanboy.threadless.com. I don't know what's happening to me. I know what's happening, but I'm holding it together. iFanboy.threadless.com. That's our t-shirt store. We have merchandise. Merchandise, not just t-shirts, but we have a lot of t-shirts. There's 20 designs and all. That's right. 7 new designs are out at the end of the year. We have more coming, but you can come buy them on t-shirts. You can buy them on mugs. You can buy them on bath mats and skateboards. You just keep scrolling, and there's more shirts. All shirts. Just keep buying shirts. And we appreciate it. We like our shirts. We like the esoteric. The more esoteric, the better. And thank you for checking us out if you did. We appreciate that very much. Then we got iFanboy.com/support. That is where you can directly donate via PayPal if you are an eccentric billionaire. We appreciate that. Appreciate you very much. Don't listen to all that talk about billionaires. We appreciate you. Just you.
We're the pro billionaire comic book podcast.
Right.
Depending
on your actions, obviously. But that's how you can drop a tip in the PayPal jar if you don't want to be a member, or a patron, or buy a t-shirt. We appreciate that very much. iFanboy.com/Amazon is where you can shop via Amazon link. And finally, bookshop.org is our partner. For buying books. We usually find those links on our Booksplode posts, and you can buy a book and have a local bookstore fulfill your order. And that's really awesome. And we appreciate that very much. Let's get on with the show. And welcome to the Maynard.
A number of months ago, I had comic book writer James Robinson on the Talks Below show, and he was launching a raft of new books from Dark Horse Comics. I've been reading Patra, and I don't think it came on the show, but Welcome to the Maynard was the second one of these.
You were off when the first one came out because Ryan and I talked about it.
Yeah, I didn't hear that, so I don't know what you said about it. Yeah. Sorry. This is the second
I don't listen
issue.
Unless I'm on it.
I don't. Well, no, I don't.
I know.
I don't listen if I am on it. It's I just don't listen.
I have to listen.
Huh?
I have to listen. How else will I orgasm?
Wow. I gotta say, I'm thrown.
I like this book.
I like this book. I think it is much better than it could be. The concept, it could be really hokey, but you got a really good writer, and I just think there's it's I was gonna say complicated, but I really mean there's a complex thing going on here with who everybody is and what their motivations are, but it's still kind of a quirky. I guess there's a whodunit to it, but it's I don't know there's some sort of classic movie that has this as a name for.
Yeah, there's tons of it's a little screwball-y, it's a little Grand Hotel, like
yeah,
it's a magical hotel in San Francisco, caters to people of the magical persuasion. It's no one else can see it. You have to be a magic person to even see it. And this we follow the main character Pip, who is she's a halfling, half magician, half magic, and she's got a new job as a bellhop, but really she's there to learn at the feet of her family friend, the house detective. And I believe we need to bring the house detective back. I know that they just changed the head of security, but they should just be called house detective.
Yeah,
they
I
should
agree.
walk around in a trench coat.
And you may remember the Bunny Colvin was a house detective for a little while in season 4 of The Wire. Anyway, and then of course I haven't mentioned it, but J-Bone, it's great, perfect for this book. J-Bone is a great artist. I was going to say from the Darwin school, but it's really more like he's a Darwin contemporary. They work
together.
Yeah, they work together, and not a rip-offy thing. They have similar styles, and it's great. It's not a lot of people can do something this cartoony, but also be able to tell the story so well. High level of skill, and the book's a lot of things at once in a really good way. And so I really enjoyed the second issue. I'm surprised at just how much has happened in the span of just 2 issues. It's pretty.
I would say it's almost all ages. It's not, but it's almost.
Yeah.
I'm going to say this, and it's going to sound weird. It's not a criticism or really a compliment, but it doesn't feel like James Robinson.
Yeah.
Like if you handed me the book with no creative, I wouldn't guess James Robinson. I like his work a lot. That's saying that's a benefit. It's just interesting. He's doing a totally different style here, and also,
but I can see him in it.
Well, for a book that's mostly kind of lighthearted, it's about like if there's a thief who's trying to steal stuff from the hotel. There's a page in this book this week that's absolutely devastating. That felt like James Robinson. It's where there's an old man who shows up, and the Pip learns that he's been coming for years, and we see him throughout the ages with his wife. They're young, then they're middle-aged, then they're old, and then it's just him in a 4-panel sequence.
It's a beautiful sequence.
Devastatingly sad and well done page. I was so impressed. That was my page of the week. Honestly, it was so good. It felt like the opening of Up, in that sort of way. It was so good, and it pays off later. He's not just throwing this in there to make us feel sad.
Yep.
There's a payoff later with that character and his wife, and it was just really. I just thought this was a really good issue. I think this is a good book.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So I'm still committed. I think I don't know if I'm officially committed, but I'm kind of doing it to reading all the new X-Men #1s. And so I took a look at Magik #1 from Ashley Allen and Herman Peralta, which is actually a big reason why I did make sure I took a look at it, because Herman Peralta is one of my favorite artists working. And I enjoyed this. I don't have much. I like Magik. Magik is always there, and I always enjoy her. She's got the giant sword, but I don't know a ton about her, and so I thought this was helpful.
Do you have a slide for this?
I do have a slide. Sorry, I'm thinking about the sword. And it's not a Herman Peralta cover. It's a J. Scott Campbell cover.
No, it's clearly not.
So one thing that was interesting is I've been reading Tom Brevoort's blog, his Substack, and he, as the new editor of the X-Men line, he's taking a lot of heat because, the X-Men fan is a notoriously level-headed and calm fandom. And so people have been complaining that, in the books, there's a lot of explaining about who people are and what they can do. And his whole thing is, I think it's important that they Claremont their powers. They explain what they do, because people who don't know them won't know. And I agree with him, because I actually now know what Magik can do. I never knew it in the past because no one ever explained it.
Mm-hmm.
And you should not assume that every X-Men book is being read solely by people who've been reading it for 45 years. So her soul sword is a physical manifestation of her own dark soul and cuts through magic. I didn't know that. I just thought it was a sword. But now I know.
Is that the mutant power? Because she's like a couple of things.
She opens portals.
Right.
And they go through limbo. So like if she set a portal from my house to your house, I could go to your house, but I'd have to make a shoot through limbo to get there. So it's a little disturbing.
I mean, it's going to cut time out.
It will. I'll just have to be very rattled when I get there. I saw a lot of things.
I mean, I've been in traffic like that before, which pretty much left me in the same state as going through hell.
Yeah. I like this. This was fun. I enjoyed it enough to read a second issue. I like Magik. I want to know more about her. I thought this was interesting. The story of there's this town that's been protecting this magical ward that's been keeping some terrible demon at bay, and it almost escapes. And she's got but the woman doing it dies, so her grandson now has to be the ward of the ward. And I thought it was a good story. I don't know who Ashley Allen is, but I liked it.
Are you all in?
Like Stan Lee character.
Are you allowed to be all in for Marvel?
I'm all in for issue 2.
Okay,
I think that's fair. I mean, that's all I got.
Okay.
But Transformer 16 also came out this week.
Transformer 16 is not a lot else to say that we haven't said before, but there was a couple of moments in this issue this week where I was just like, this is perfect. This is a perfect thing, is what's happening with this book. And part of it,
put that in the cover, Skybound. This is a perfect thing.
This is a perfect thing. Devastator forms up to fight with Bruticus. These are two childhood holy grails of toys. If you got Devastator, you'd won the lottery.
Would you rather have a Devastator, or would you rather have a Flag?
I mean, in terms of practicality, the Devastator really is going to give you more value, especially as a nearly 50-year-old man.
No, I meant when you were a kid.
I mean, I would have wanted the Flag back then. I was a G.I. Joe kid, not a Transformers kid.
No, you're not going to sell a USS Flag right now.
No.
That's a divorced thing. I got a divorce. I'm buying myself a Flag.
They're on the eBay.
Oh no, I know that. I'm saying is you're not getting that in the house. I'm saying once you get a divorce, you could get it in the house.
Nor do I want it. That is a hassle. That's like I could have a couch there. There's no need for that. Anyway,
you could hang it.
As we've talked about many times on the show, I really like the ability of cartoonists to just depict scale, and I just really like that anytime Devastator or Bruticus or any of those were featured, including on the cover, like they just look huge, and they do that by Jorge Corona does that by utilizing the whole page, putting the other characters in the background, and this book does that in general really good while still obeying the cartoon rules of Transformers, which is we're never going to discuss their size. We are going to make them as big or as small as they need to be.
Right.
And it's fun. And then finally, there's a page in here. It is page 9, I believe, in which Starscream is wheeled out. You may remember he was fused. Instead of legs, he has a hiss tank sticking out of the bottom of him.
Yes.
Somebody has a remote control for that. Astro Train comes out of nowhere to destroy Soundwave, and at the top of the page it's the sound effect choo choo, which is obscured by the space jets coming out of Astro Train, and Starscream couldn't be more thrilled about it. And I was just like, it's perfect.
The best page this week was in the Welcome to the Maynard, but the second best page was when Starscream realized he had dropped the little controller, which is human sized. So it's like he's got to control it between his fingers, like the world's tiniest violin. And he realized one of the Autobots picked it up and he moved him. He couldn't control how he moved anymore, and the Autobot moved him away.
It's not Autobot. It's Thundercracker. It's the other
that's right.
Jet who he, they had a little schism there.
That's right.
Thundercracker.
But he sends him firing. He sends him away. It's like, ah.
Yeah,
that was the best page when he no longer had control over his own.
This book has way too many of those. I gotta, like Daniel Warren Johnson is he's writing the crap out of this as far as I'm concerned. But when he went away from the art, I don't think we lost a lot.
No, Jorge Corona's been really great.
I mean, really, just exactly filling in that same sort of itch, and it's been so like nothing. It's just so fun to look at.
I know this is antithetical to the book, but I would kill for a let's take a breather issue. Like we're 16 issues in and it's been full throttle. Like Batman, Absolute Batman has been full throttle, and then we took a breather for 4 where we got to sort of see what the whole deal was. I would love. I know we're getting a lot of backstory in these issues. I know we're learning a lot, but I would love to just sit for a second. This is a lot.
So, way back when I had roommates in California, they were watching. So I remember some of them were watching through G.I. Joe, the animated series again. And what I remember, I think it was my roommate Tom, I was like, so how's it? And he just goes, wall-to-wall action. And that's what those were. And that's what this is. That was the comic, wall-to-wall action.
That's true.
And that's what it has to be. My friend Patrick will send me ridiculous panels from comic books every once in a while, and all he'll write is "I love comics." And this week I sent him that one of Astro Train smashing through Choo Choo, and I love comics. This is fantastic. It is exactly what you show up for.
All right. Well, I'm still very much enjoying it. I would just like to breathe for a second. That's because I'm old. So if you don't like serial killer stories, you're probably not going to enjoy Batman Dark Patterns. But issue 2 came out this week, written by Dan Waters. Art, get this, by Hayden Sherman, the artist of Absolute Wonder Woman.
That guy's getting around.
Yeah, I got to believe this was drawn a while ago. And I actually quite like this. So far, I haven't found myself really enamored with Dan Waters' work. Dan's relatively new on the mainstream scene. He's writing Nightwing, and it's, fine. But I quite enjoy this because it is a back to basics. And I know, Josh, you're staring at this cover and want an explanation, but it's a back to basics sort of Batman story. It takes place in some nebulous time of Batman's. It's not now. Commissioner Gordon's there, Alfred's there. All it is Batman and a serial killer. It's just what I've been asking for. Just like, tell me a Batman crime story, and this is what this book basically is.
This cover makes me think that this is exactly the Hayden Sherman who wrote who did that book with Scott Snyder, because
it's much more like that. One. So the guy in this one, I don't even remember what his name is, but he is punishing himself, and he has stuck pins and screws and nails into a good portion of his body.
Mm-hmm.
And so he's got also rebar coming out of his back. I know rebar is historically the enemy of iFanboy.
I need a minute.
But it's just Batman trying to stop a serial killer, and it's yellow oval Batman, and it's just really fun. And Hayden Sherman,
that's a fantastic descriptor of what kind of Batman we're looking at. What kind of Batman we're looking at? It's yellow oval Batman. I'm like, yeah. I got it.
And it's Hayden Sherman not doing exactly the level of stuff that he's doing on Wonder Woman, but it's still very, very good and very, very unusual for this kind of book. And I think on that level, you would enjoy it. I don't know if you would enjoy the serial killer aspect of it, but it is excellent. Otherwise,
you know me, I love serial killers. Huge fan.
I know. I mean,
no one should say I love serial killers, but there are many people who will.
No one slander me like that. those are the books we're going to talk about. But at patreon.com/iFanboy, every patron gets a vote to add a book to the rundown. We call that the Patron Pick. And this week, the patrons voted is fairly not overwhelming, but they had a fairly strong win this week. And the winner was the Lucky Devils #1 from Charles Soule, Ryan Brown, Kevin Nipstein, and Christopher Crank, formerly known as Crank. And I did really like that Charles Soule and Ryan Brown's production company is, and I misspelled his name on the fucking slide, but their production company is called Silent E Productions because both their names end in silent E's. And so I apologize. Ryan Brown's name has BROWNE. This is the team behind 8 Billion Genies, a book we loved when it came out, however many years ago that was. And I like this. I'm not sure what to make of it yet, but I liked it.
I found it to be very similar to 8 Billion Genies, which, because it's the same team. But it's also the idea that, like, there's this group of small, powerful beings who are a little goofy looking, who are kind of controlling everything. Really, really, really liked that book. So to go into something that felt relatively similar, I think it set my expectations in a weird place. So I didn't not like it. I enjoyed it enough, but I was kind of like, I just read more of that other book. I don't know that it brought enough new to the table.
That's why I'm not sure. Like, I like this issue, but I want to see more of the why. Like, I don't think we understood the why of 8 Billion Genies right away. You know, like the why of the story. Like, what does it actually mean? What is actually happening? At first, it was kind of this fun little like wish fulfillment fantasy, and then it became much darker than that. And so I want to see what exactly these demons have going on. I like the idea that hell isn't like a terrible place for fire and brimstone. It's just another place to live. People are watching the Big Bang the Bang Big Theory on TV, and you know, I just don't know why these things are happening. Why these devils on your shoulder, you know, need them to do these things. It's, you know, there's some sort of like complicated thing about souls and things, but there's got to be a bigger why here, and I'm more curious about that, I guess.
I did like the exploration of the idea that some people are inherently good, and what it would take to sort of, you know, tempt them or get them away from it. And so watching these two main characters who are having not the worst day, you know, your home didn't burn down,
right?
But just like a series of sort of setbacks and inconveniences and sort of personal, you know, like just having another bad conversation with your mom, you know, and how there was a setup here where they were each in a position to do something wrong, something petty.
Yeah.
And you thought they were going to, and then you sort of find out they didn't. That automatically puts you on their side, or puts me on their side as a reader.
Right.
And so you then don't want them to fall. You don't want them to be manipulated. And that tension, I think, is really strong. That was the best part of the book for me.
Right.
I don't quite know where the devils are coming from.
Right.
Like the devils were kind of interesting enough on their own because you got to figure it out. But then there's like a twist that goes along with it after that I don't quite get yet. That's not a failure. It's just it's what you said.
They, for some reason, want these people to become the worst version of themselves. And I think the why of that is we don't know yet.
I mean, it's going to be like Monsters, Inc., like that Powers Devil World or whatever.
Sure. But that's their goal, is to turn these two people, one's an adjunct professor, one's a nurse, into the worst versions of themselves. And so that's what they're after. I thought the art was good. Ryan Brown.
I mean, you want to talk about people who don't get appreciated enough. It's an adjunct professor and a nurse. What an excellent choice of professions.
Right. So, yeah, I mean, look, it didn't blow my socks off like 8 Billion Genies. Because I think 8 Billion Genies out of the gate, we were like, oh,
it's a great first issue.
Interesting. I think this is a good first issue. I think this is a good first issue. I don't think it was a great first issue, but I thought it was a very good one. And I think this team has earned the right for me to continue to check out what they've got going on here, because they've proved it before.
And that's also one of those sort of nice situations where you know, when a comic book writer and a comic book artist love each other very much, you know, and they like people get a good working relationship going.
Right.
This is the Tom King, Mitch Gerrards of Charles and Ryan's life. In comic books, and I like that. It's fun, Ed Brubaker and Sean Phillips kind of thing.
Yeah, and it's a full package. It looks great. The coloring is really strong. They do a lot of interesting things with different shades of color depending on memories, and it's not super bright. It's a lot of pale coloring, which is interesting. But it's not like saturated reds. It's very pale reds. I think that's interesting color choice for demons. Yeah, I'm into it. I'm not loving it, but I'm into it enough to read more.
Okay.
Ratings on the Lucky Devils.
3.75.
Ooh. Sorry about that. I think so. I think that's fair. I think not as high as a 4, but certainly not a 3.5.
Yeah, that's exactly. I was like, I would have said I liked it more if it was a 4, but it ain't bad.
Did you read it before? It was the pick of the Patron pick. Would you have read it anyway?
I did, yeah, of course.
Yeah, I did too. And are you sticking with it? Yes.
Yes.
Patreon.com/iFanboy. Thanks for being a patron and thanks for voting. If you haven't, consider it. It's fun. The more people vote, the more interesting the vote ends up being. But now, if you give it the $5 or higher level, you get a patron power live on the show. Sometimes it's dumb, sometimes it's awesome. And this time, Josh is giving it out.
Whenever anybody speaks to Chris, they can't help it. They're compelled to make flourishes with their hands and arms, especially at the end of sentences. And they wave their hands around.
I apologize for listeners. This is a visual joke.
Overly, it wouldn't have been, but it happens that it could be. So when they speak to him, they just and that's when the reports will be in. They can't help it. They flourish their arms about.
But is it only on statements that would require a flourish, or is it anything?
No, any conversation that they have with him in person. And the thing is, when it happens, no one's thinking, "What am I doing?"
Right.
Or "What's up with Phyllis?" It's not that. It's
they just understand it to be true.
It's understood, accepted. These are, it's a lot of flourishing. You can walk away from that conversation quite tired,
but you get a nice workout.
Yeah,
you burn a lot of calories moving your arms around,
and it does add a level of the dramatic to maybe what was a little banal before.
Do people understand this is what's happening because he's around, or they just take it for it?
No, I think
they understand something wrong is happening, or that's what happens.
No, they don't understand. They're just doing it, and they're accepting it as the reality that is there.
Interesting.
As are the people around it. Like, what the hell are you doing when you're talking to Chris? They're just like, it's just something about Chris, man. I know.
All right. Patreon.com/iFanboy. Thanks, Chris, for being a patron. Enjoy your power of flourishes.
Guess who had nothing left on his list?
I think that was a good one.
Well, it's the pressure. Makes diamonds.
What do we want to do for email? We got email time. Got at least time for one, depending on
let's do number 2, which would be Dan.
First.
Dan B says, "You guys often comment about how tired you are. How the hell with you, sir?" Same here. All right, welcome. My question is, what is your reading setup? When and where do you do it? I often try to read at night in bed, and I say try because more often than not, I pass out just 2 pages in. I've been thinking about this since I woke up from a Plastic Man-induced coma. Now, I feel like we have answered this question, but I feel like it was a very long time ago, 2 people in very different physiological circumstances and life circumstances. So I thought this is a good check-in.
It's going to be a disappointing answer
on your reading practices.
I was thinking about this when you picked it for the script, that the last time I had like a reading setup was when we were doing this full time, because we could do that, right? And so in my old apartment, we had a balcony and a lounge chair, and I would go out there with like a beverage, and I would bring my stack of books, because this is before we'd gone fully digital, and I would put them on the side table from the chair, and I would just read my books on the balcony in the California sun. That was the last time I had a setup. Now it's a mad scramble to read them whenever I can in between meetings or other things, or often at night before bed, and then if like my wife is on a call with her friends or doing something, I'll read them on the couch while she's on a Zoom call or with somebody or something, or like she's in her
Can you
class.
read with like? Do you wear headphones in that instance, or can you just read with something else
I
going
just
on?
read in silence. I can't read with. I don't really read with music. I don't really read with music. Just transparently this week there was a little bit of reading with the news on, so that was a little distracting, which is might have been fuzzy on a few details this week. But normally I try to read in silence just because I like to concentrate on what's happening.
What I've been doing is that all the Apple devices all have a classical music app, and if you have an Apple, so I will pull out. There's music on there that almost works like somewhere between meditation music and something else,
That's
just because there's
interesting.
always noise going on, and I am easily distracted, so I have to try to
Right.
block that stuff out.
I mean, it's not unusual. People do like to read with music, especially classical music, because it doesn't
Mhm.
have lyrics to bother to bother the reading. And I would try that. I'm not
I
against
mean,
it. I just haven't done it.
there's a Philip Glass album that I listen to all the time when I read books because it's just, or I'll listen to like jazz or something. I used to be able to listen to all sorts of stuff while I read, but I'm
Do
not
you
so
have a
much anymore.
chair?
So my
You
setup
on the
these
couch back
days
there?
is there definitely used to be like a time for the marathon.
Mm.
And now we are fortunate enough to get some books a lot earlier than we used to. And so I really try to spread it out, and I find that helps my enjoyment
Mhm.
and retention of them a lot more, because one of the things that is different about now than before is I can't really read in too late into the night. I stay up pretty late, so I get a lot of time. I don't want to stay up really late. I can't help it. But I will start falling asleep if I leave it to too late. I cannot read in my bed. If I go into my bed and read like I will fall asleep
Mm.
doing that. And I have it depends on where people are too. There's a recliner downstairs, and if everybody leaves or goes to bed, I'll hang out there for a while. I like to read here in my office. I have a little couch over here that's nice if people are still awake. But I don't tend to do it all at once, and I'll read while I eat lunch or breakfast or whatever, and I can fit them in. There is some toilet involvement. I'm not
Okay.
going to tell you that there isn't.
Talk
That's
about
not.
transparent. I tend to not read before Tuesday.
Yeah.
If I much earlier than that, then by the time we do the show, I'll have forgotten details. If it's a week where I've got like 25, 30
Mhm.
books, then I have to start earlier. I'm just not going to get it done by the time we're recording.
I
But
usually try to start by Monday.
yeah, I
And
don't.
I don't remember it anyway. So whatever I read on Monday, I'm not going to remember on. Like, I can look at it and it'll jog it. If you were to
Right.
ask me like point blank what happened, but
I try to do half on Tuesday and half on Wednesday is what I try to
yeah.
do. And if it's a short week, then that means the pick of the week goes up Wednesday. People, I know you had it up
Mhm.
early this week, which was good for you. And people were like so surprised, but that used to be the norm. We used to always have the pick of the week up on Wednesday.
Yeah.
It's just that
We had to write the review.
we also were doing it full time,
Mhm.
and then we were younger before that. But yeah, I mean, I wish I had like a setup, like I had here's my chair and here's what I do. And that's what I used to do, but now
I
it's more
mean,
it's more survival mode. Like get these things
we
read in
also
time for the
I
show.
mean, I for sure read a lot more books than I ever have before on a
Mhm.
regular basis. And I've been able to do that is that I've been able to spread it out more, and it's way less stressful for me.
I'm glad.
'Cause
I'm glad you are, because in the past it'd be
yeah,
like I can only read 10 books.
yeah. So that's been good, and I enjoy it more, and they sink in, and
Would I love
you
to be in
count
a
it.
leather chair by a fire with a cognac and a pipe, reading comics, and a smoking jacket with slippers? I can keep going
I have a fire and a leather
like
chair
a
down there. I can do that.
yeah. Do you have I should get you a smoking jacket
I don't
first.
have anything after leather chair. By the way, nor do I want them. That's
I'm
none
getting
of
you a
that.
smoking jacket.
I don't.
I want you to walk around like Hugh Hefner. So I wish I had all those things, but I don't. Now it's a matter of just where I can get it done and when I can get it. The fact that reading digitally means that I have all of them always, no matter where I'm
Yeah.
going, is helpful. Like there's a part of me that misses like the stack and like the physical knowing of how much you've got left.
Mhm.
But I can take this iPad and I'll have everything, all my comics in it. So if it's run downstairs to the couch, or I'm in bed, or by the couch behind me, or wherever. I've always got all my books. I don't have to worry about, bringing them all with me all the time.
I didn't
That's
see
my
the pull
answer.
cord for your iPad. Did you?
This is a new iPad. It's newish. It's still not a new iPad. You've got a newer iPad than I have.
I do. I have a
Let's
new
see your
iPad.
new iPad.
Well,
Is it bigger than your
looks
head?
exactly like all the other iPads.
It's bigger than your head.
But I did get the 13-inch. Notice my lock screen.
I can't see where you got the thing up.
Yeah, I know.
Look at the screen.
Screws with it. I got
You had some things covering it. Now what's on the lock screen? Oh,
yeah. Oh, that's actually the lock. So that
you have G.I. Joe. That's awesome.
G.I. Joe 21, and those are pages. Anyway, I got the 13-inch, and that's because with the 10-inch, I was having to wear reading glasses most of the time, and these are blue light reading glasses, so I can go to sleep more easily afterwards. But the 13-inch was necessary except in that way. The 13-inch iPad is a fucking pain in the ass. It's too big, it's too heavy, it's annoying, but the only thing I use it for is comics, and for that, it is great.
Well, thanks, Dan, for writing in. Contact@ifanboy.com is what he wrote into to get on the show. We want to hear from you. It's always fun to have good questions for the show. We've got lots of good ones lately, so thanks for writing in. You can also write in for our Media Explode show by writing Media Explode in the subject line. Thank you very much. And now some plugs and announcements. This past week, we had our Booksplode review of Fortune and Glory, the musical, the new Brian Michael Bendis. What's the word? Why can't I think of words? What is it?
Memoir, comics,
memoir is the word I was thinking of. It's the sequel to Fortune and Glory that he did in 1999. Little behind the scenes, they changed the release date, so we put the show out for the original release date. They changed the release date to 2 weeks from now. So you can listen to the audio version now. In 2 weeks, you'll be able to watch the YouTube version, and because of art stuff and everything, embargoes. So you can listen now. It's available on where you listen to your podcast, but in 2 weeks, it'll be on our YouTube channel. So you can see the pages if you want. This coming week is our Media Explode for December. Nope. No, it's not. For January. We'll be talking about what we watched and saw and enjoyed over the holiday break in December. So it'll be a Media Explode about December. You can look forward to that this coming week. And that's all we got going for you this month, besides this show.
Right. You can find our library of shows. Those words changed. You can find our library of shows at ifanboy.com, where Connor wisely took out the number.
You told me to take it out. I took it out.
I don't remember things I say.
In the last year, you said, I don't want to keep doing this number, so I took it out.
Yeah, but then it was also a fun bit. I don't want to, but you make hay while the sun shines. Shows are over at ifanboy.com, wherever podcasts are sold. You can never miss a show and find out where the pick of the week is before the show comes out by following us at iFanboy Comics on Instagram and Threads, and at iFanboy on Blue Sky. Connor and I are individually. C.S. Kilpatrick on Instagram and J.A. Flanagan on Instagram.
And please consider writing us a review or leaving a star rating on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, wherever you get your podcasts. If you're listening on Pocket Casts, you need to be subscribed and have downloaded a few episodes before you can rate it. And you can subscribe on youtube.com/ifanboy, where you can watch the video version of this show. You might be doing that right now, as well as find an archive of all of our old video shows that we did from 2007 to 2012. And finally, you can join us in the iFanboy After Show exclusively on Patreon, where we'll be sharing our thoughts on all. This week, we had 10 other books that we read that didn't make the show. We were talking about those books on the After Show. That's at patreon.com/ifanboy for everybody at the $10 or higher tier and up. Thanks for listening. Thanks for putting up with. I was all off on the directing this week because I've got my news alerts and it's just a lot of things going on. So I'll be better next week. I was going to say next month, but it's a weekly show. It's been weekly for 20 years. Thanks for listening. I'm Connor.
I'm Josh. I'm very glad you're able to do this with us.
Thank you.
I hope that this provided you with some relief.
It did. It was fun.
Okay, good. Me too. I'm a little relieved, although I don't want to think about what's going on down the street from you.